it is wickedness to ask people to just remain helpless when the government fails them. How many people have to die before we understand this fact has to become a reality? Until the government steps up. I'm talking about this situation now because of the failure of government that we found ourselves in, right? And in this failure, if the government cannot sit up, then they start considering licensing firearms. But then you now ask yourself, if the same government is withdrawing protection from people before terrorists come in, will they license firearms?
I think it is time for Nigeria to allow us to be carrying arms. If not, these boys, you see them, you will just be vomiting. In the church, where this man is discussing with us, was discussing with us, these are small boys carrying guns. If all of us, particularly the elite, and few of us who are okay, are carrying guns, it is war against war. These boys will run away because there are not too many. It is time for us to stand and make a law that it is criminal for the negotiator, because the negotiators are even eating deep into what is happening today. Where is the bank where they normally withdraw such huge of money to settle them, including the banks, including the negotiator and the kidnappers? They are all criminals and they should face death penalty. I submit.
By calling for citizens to be licensed to carry firearms has been a long time debate. Some say it's a radical proposal that will either be seen as a desperate cry for self-preservation or a recipe for total chaos. I mean, this is not the first time that we've, seen this debate online or even Nigerians talking. I believe there was even a bill by Ned Nwoko that, he tried to push. But you can't really blame anyone calling to protect themselves at this point. We have even seen videos, if you can pull some of those videos, of priests carrying guns that have been trending on social media all along. Your thoughts on the story? These are the videos we're seeing of these priests, even in church, carrying guns.
We find ourselves in such a complex place,
yes.
OG, because what do you expect people to do in this type of climate? Is that the natural human instinct of self-preservation kicks in and people want to resort to self-help. But unfortunately, when it comes to self-help, we've seen time and time again that it generally does lead to a state of anarchy. But in this moment, we say, okay, the state is not doing its duty. So the people are saying, well, we can't just be exposed. So the state has to step in. This is what we've been calling for consistently, and we can't relent in continuing to call for that. Because let's remind ourselves that one of the reasons why we are in this predicament is because it is just a brazen institutional weakness.
Yes.
Now, how many people actually update their driver's license regularly? And how often is it checked? And how authentic is it? If you look across the country, driver's license, right? Now, how are we now going to regulate gun licenses? And how are we going to ensure that, people truly are abiding by it? How are we going to bypass the corruption? So institutions first have to be addressed. And this is, I'm just consistent about this point, that the real fundamental issues, we can't take Panadol for this kind of ailment, unfortunately. So yes, if all things are equal, I think it's fair to say people should have the right to carry firearms. But unfortunately, all things are not equal, and we don't want a situation where the same people that we are accusing of orchestrating and being perpetuators of these things, their arguments that these people are funded by powerful people. Are we sure we want those same powerful people to now have legal licenses to also access firearms? Because remember, as much as innocent citizens will have access to it, also those with malicious intent will also have access. So many things. Are we going to do mental health checks before granting licenses? This gun licenses, it's a huge topic,
it is.
On its own.
It's such a huge topic that I wish that everyone can...
They are behaving like they are in a psychotic state.
They don't have guns.
If you give them guns freely, then you'll be opening the gate to hell.
But you know that most of the
gun control.
What about that most of the gun violence that has been perpetrated by people in America, people that have been unwell. A lot of them are not normal. Those that the gun violence.
That we have many people who are unwell walking on the streets of Lagos and Nigeria that are not sure.
Right.
Didn't you say that even our political leaders should all undergo psychological tests? Because we are not yet mature for that. Please, for those who are advocating for that, it's an abdication of responsibility of the government to do what they're supposed to do, rather than emphasize licensing guns. Let's use that same energy to push for the government to do what they're supposed to do.
Yes,
we can
but
do it.
Also the conversation about even these terrorists that have access, the proliferation of arms, firearms is the biggest problem that we have in Nigeria. How are these people able to have their hands on the guns and we're not able to? Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll continue on the conversation.
Guns, even without guns,
so you don't own a gun? You don't own a firearm?
What will
I thought you had one.
I'm covered by the blood of
Amen. In traffic, people will be angry and bring out a gun.
That's what happens in America. That's
really
one of the biggest issues in America. The gun control.
Well, I think if the government is not going to license firearms for the citizens, if not going to license firearms for people to safeguard and to protect themselves, because it is very, very obvious that the government has failed in its capacity to protect the life and the property of its citizens. It is very, very obvious that this government has actually failed in that area. Looking at what is really going on, high rate of insecurity everywhere in the country. No place can be said to be safe anymore. It started up from the north and now it has gone down to the west, going down now to the east and the south. So you see that every area of the country now is now infiltrated, is now, by this unknown gunmen and then the bandit or terrorist or whatsoever you might choose to call it. So what are we saying? That if the government is not giving them license, it's not permitting its citizens, to safeguard themselves by approving a firearm for them. How about, state security? This state security has been a subject matter before now that has been raised, and I think it was discussed in the parliament, but it was not concluded. So why is the federal government not allowing, for the state to have its own police, where they can fully have a control, of the police and their security men? I think it will go a long way if the federal government can approve at least the state policing. Yeah, it will go a very, very long way, whereby the state will have to, recruit his own police, have a control of their security. It will go a very long way. And then, the people will not have to start depending or calling on federal government, especially from the state. Then we'll not have the federal security, we have the state security. Now, every state will now have, the obligation of protecting the life and property of its members, its citizen in that state. Yes. So if they cannot approve firearms for its citizens just so that they can be able to protect themselves for such an incident as this, they should be able to allow, the state to have their own police for their own safety. What do you think about that? This is my submissions anyway.